Same is with the case of iridopostius. So again, these are axial cups. So मैले भनेको थिएँ होइन, सुरुमा they are creamish white, they become light yellow, and they become चाहिँ bright orange. So these are axial cups. So after this, some ring-like structure, light brown structures are found around them. They are iridopostials. They are more prominent on the stem. In advanced stage, they may be seen on the upper, lower side of the leaf. This was iridopostials. They get converted into black colored or dark brown colored postules, which are known as tilia. So Euromyces, हामीले दुईटा species पढ्यौँ, Euromyces pisci and Euromyces viciae. So Euromyces viciae, it is an autoecious rust. So in our case, Euromyces pisci is not so important. So this Euromyces viciae, it can also cause rust in broad bean and lentils. So in broad bean, rust is seed-borne, while in case of peas and lentil, it generally survives as teliospore in the crop debris. So they have different collateral hosts as well, such as Lathyrus vicea, some different kinds of weed hosts. Even broad bean lentil, so they can easily penetrate in those hosts easily. So rust, they are also favored by low temperature conditions, generally optimum we trust some temperature conditions. In case of pea rust, the optimum temperature conditions required for disease development is 20 degrees Celsius, and it also requires high relative humidity, more than 85%. So these dark brown thing which you are seeing in this leaf, they are iridopostials. So this is axial stage when they are bright orange. So bright orange, they are generally found on the lower side of the leaf. So they are axial stage, and this may be accompanied by development of some dark colored, dark brown to light brown pustules. They are technically known as iridopostials, and by the end of the season, they get converted into teliopostials. So they have several collateral hosts. So जहाँ यसको problem बढी छ त्यहाँनिर चाहिँ we should recommend crop rotation with non-host crops. Broad beans, Vicia, Lathyrus, and Vicia species, they are beans. So broad beans, they are generally affected by Euromyces vicia fabi. So as a prophylactic spray, mancozeb can be used, which is available as Dithan M45. So, but when it is very severe, then you can use triazole fungicide, which is known as hexaconazole, or you can use difenoconazole. Sulfur fungicides, they can also be recommended. So for rust as well, sulfur fungicides, they are very, very effective. But in case of wheat, sulfur toxicity is one of the problems. So this the rice may copper oxychloride, they are not generally recommended, because in case of rice, there's high chance of copper toxicity. So त्यो कुराहरु अलिकति विचार गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ हैन. So you can use tridimethone, it is not available in our case. Hexaconazole can be easily procured. Even difenoconazole, it is not easily accessible in our case. So we have already discussed white rot of pea, that is caused by Sclerotomia sclerotianum. So in case of pea, there's another important disease, Aspergillus blight. It is also known as foot rot complex or black spot complex. So recently this disease is emerging in our case. So Aspergillus blight is already a serious problem in Indian conditions in pea and chickpea. So recently in our country, you know, so this problem is emerging. So this can be, and then this in few years, this will be a major problem for sure. So, this is a complex because this disease is caused by more than one species of Mycosphaerella or Ascochyta. Mycosphaerella is telomorphic state, so Ascochyta is anamorphic state. So there are different species involved in disease development, or different species may be involved, so that's why it is known as Ascochyta blight complex. So just like तपाईँले हेल्मिन्थोस्पोरियम लिफ ब्लाइट कम्प्लेक्स भनेर पढ्नु भयो, सो त्यहाँनिर बाइपोलारिस पनि हुनसक्छ, अथवा पाइरेनोफोरा ट्रिटिसाई दुइटै मिसेर आउन सक्छ, अथवा अल्टरनेरिया पनि मिसेर आउन सक्छ. So when a disease is caused, when there's a complex disease caused by different species or different genera, then that is known as a disease complex. So in case of Ascochyta blight, so there are different phases. There may be pod rot, there may be root rot, or there may be leaf blight phase, otherwise Mycosphaerella leaf blight phase. So in case of Mycosphaerella or Ascochyta blight, so generally symptoms, they appear as minute circular spots, but those spots, they are more or less irregular. They have a dark margin and they are purplish. They are purplish brown. And with aging of this lesion, so you'll be able to see some black dot-like thing. Some black dot-like thing may be seen in the ring. So they are pycnidia formed by the pathogen, that is Ascochyta. So you can see some kind of zonations here, and so those zonations, they are due to formation of pycnidia in ring-like pattern. So they are typically purplish brown. So with disease advancements, some pycnidial rings can be seen, and they are irregular. So initially they may seem circular, but with aging they becomes irregular. They may become zonate with formation of pycnidia. So on pods you can see and clearly, so some kind of dot-like things. So pod infections, they are very clear, and so symptoms are very clear cut on the pods. On leaf, it's confusing. It can be easily confused with necrotic patches formed by powdery mildew as well, until and unless pycnidia are seen. So this is some general symptom of Ascochyta blight on the leaf. So when there is pod infection, so pod infections, they are very prominent, or they can be easily diagnosed. So in case of pod, you can see typical circular to oval lesions, and they are more or less purplish brown. They are generally sunken, and lot of pycnidia, black dot-like thing, which are asexual fruiting body. So you can see some dot-like things. So they are generally formed in ring-like pattern. So that's why the sunken tan-colored spots, they give it a zonate effect, just like in case of alternaria. So this kind of circular, elongated necrotic lesions, sunken necrotic tan to brown colored lesions, they can be also seen on stem, on petioles, and of course there's a foot rot phase. So when infection, the primary source of funiculum, it comes from the soil, it infects the collar region, it infects the lower portion of the stem, so it can cause water soaking, and similar elongated to circular purplish brown patches may be seen, and generally When there is infection is on the scolar lesion, they extend to the root and they cause root rotting, as a result of which they can plant, it may seem wilted or it may lose the turgidity. So this is severe case of Ascochyta blight. So some sunken spots are seen, sunken necrotic brown colored spots are seen. It may be purplish brown on stem or petiole. They are elongated. So when there is spot infection, it causes discoloration of the seed as well, shriveling of the seeds. So again, here are some typical symptoms of Ascochyta: pod rot or pod spot in case of pods. So this is one of the emerging disease you should be well known of. So these are caused by three species generally blight. It is caused by Ascochyta pinoides. The telomorphic state is Microsphaerella pinoides. It's the leaf and pod spots. They can be caused by Ascochyta pisci, and in generally in case of foot rot, they are typically caused by Ascochyta pinodella, or it is also known as Phoma medicaginis var pinodella. So about, again, in this photograph you can clearly see formation of black dot like pycnidia. They are formed in concentric rings. So uh, about the disease cycle of Ascochyta blight complex, so they can permeate in the seed, they can establish themselves in the seed if there is pod infection or seed infection on diseased crop debris. So they can survive in the crop debris as sclerotia. They at the end of the season they can form microsclerotia, or they can also form calamidospores, or perithecia is formed if weather conditions they are conducive. So this Ascochyta pinodella, Ascochyta pinoides, so they can easily survive on Vicia species, Lathyrus species, even on trifolium and other legumes such as chickpea. So trifolium, तपाईँहरूलाई थाहा छ ट्राइफोलियम, तपाईँले पढ्नुभयो होला यो फोडर एन्ड पास्चर को कोर्समा. So Ascochyta, they are also favored by low temperature conditions, होइन. सो यसको डिजिज साइक्लो एपिडियोमोलोजीको बारेमा जेनरल कुराहरू छन्. सो फर दिस thiabendazole is very effective, होइन. So as a seed, so this is also this can survive in crop debris. त्यही भएर चाहिँ generally chickpea it is a very big problem. Chickpea it is a very Ascochyta blight of chickpea is one of the very important diseases of chickpea. जुन तपाईँले chickpea disease of chickpea तपाईँले पढ्नु हुँदैन यो कोर्समा, किन भन्दाखेरि त्यो छैन त्यस, होइन. So chickpea Ascochyta blight of chickpea is a very important problem. So this can easily survive on the crop debris. So again, biocontrol agents they are recommended. So seed treatment is recommended because they can survive in the seed with carbendazim अथवा thiabendazole अथवा thiram अथवा captain. So for curative spray, thiabendazole is very effective, which is not easily available in our case. Chlorothalonine, carbendazim जस्तो कुराहरू you can easily use. So now we'll be discussing some important diseases of beans and cowpea. So this occurs in both of the crop and this is one of the important disease in case of beans and cowpea. So this is caused by Rhizoctonia solani. So Rhizoctonia solani is a soil-borne pathogen. It can form sclerotia. It is Mycelia sterile. So this is one of the very important diseases of bean and cowpea. So if there are sufficient winter rains in in winter or in early spring, so this disease is seen. And so there are two phases of this disease. One is known as root rot and another is known as web blight. So web blights, they are more seen on the leaf, they are only seen on the foliar uh, parts or upper canopy. So about the root rot symptoms. So first we will discuss about root rot. So in case of root rot, just like in case of damping off, so symptoms, they appeared just on the roots or on the stem or that is close to the soil line. So some kind of reddish brown cankers are seen. Some kind of reddish brown, initially some linear reddish brown cankers are seen that entirely girdle this stem or cover this stem. So as a result of which, so eventually this reddish brown sunken cankers, they progress to the root, and they, as a result of which, there may be wilting, wilting in the in bean or cowpea. So this may be when conditions are very favorable. Some kind of cobwebs can be seen, cobweb mycelium can be seen on the ground, or that when it is considered some kind of sclerotia, it may be seen. But त्यो कुराहरू हुनलाई सबै कुरा मिल्नु पर्छ हैन. So on when infections, so generally when there is splash rain, so the mycelia produced after germination of sclerotia on the soil, they come in contact with the leaf or aerial plant parts. So in this case, so this is web blight phase of beans, or it can also occur on cowpea. So in this case, initially some kind of water soaked patches are seen. Initial symptoms of web blight, they occur as some circular light gray brown spots, some small circular gray light brown spots, and they are generally surrounded by some irregular water soaked area. So this is very advanced symptom. So in this case, in these figures, you can see some kind of small circular light gray to tan colored thing, and they are generally surrounded by some irregular water soaked areas. So after this, generally the margin initially, and so when this is in this stage, their margin is pale green. So some kind of water soaking takes place, and some kind of pale green margin is there. I mean, gradually they become brown in color. So this advances, this covers a large area, and they can cause irregular large tan colored patches. So in this case, you can see some kind of greenness or water soaked irregular margins. So these are some symptoms on the leaf. So these are some good photographs. So initial water soaking, they are irregular, they are light brown to gray. So their margin, they are more or less greenish in the initial stage or pale green, but later they become brown in color, the margins. So on these water soaked areas or on these lesions, so some cobweb mycelium can be seen. Some cobweb mycelium can be seen that is further accompanied by development of sclerotia. So this is known as web blight because when symptoms, they reach on the upper foliage, so the adjacent leaves, so you can see some patches, some kind of patches. So as a result of this disease, the entire leaf may be chlorotic, they may shade early, but on the upper canopy, so generally the adjacent leaves, they are webbed. होइन, दे आर वेब्ड टुगेदर भन्छ यसलाई हामीले. सो दे आर टचिङ इच अदर होइन, अथवा चाहिँ दे आर जोइनिङ इच अदर, दे आर वेब्ड टुगेदर. So by the cobweb mycelium formed by Rhizoctonia. So that's why they are also known as web blight. So there may be premature defoliation. So त्यही कुराहरू छ यसमा. Same things are here, right? So pod infections, they can also take place. So about pod infections, generally त्यति साह्रो चाहिँ देखिँदैन. And pod infection, they are very minor. So these are again some good photographs that shows the webbing of the two leaves. So adjacent leaves, they are webbed together in this case. In this photograph you can see the adjacent leaves, due to this water soaked spot, especially they become tan colored, they become irregular, they form large patches. At last everything is blighted, and finally the leaves, they are webbed together. So you may also find some kind of sclerotia in these webbed leaves. So when you reddish sunken cankers, they are found in the cola region, so they are constricted. So pod infections, they are not generally seen, but when they are seen, they appear as some kind of sunken spots, but they are very minute. Anthracnose generally pod infections, they are rarely seen in case of web blight of bean and cowpea. So again, you can see some good symptoms here. So initially the margins, the margins are irregular. They are some kind of greenish gray kind of margin. They are water soaked. भनेको पानीले भिजे जस्तो देखिन्छ जुन पहिलाको फोटोग्राफमा थियो. र eventually they develop a dark brown border, होइन. So that's how you identify them, and they are irregular. So when conditions are very very humid at this time, this kind of extensive water soaking can be seen. So त्यही कुरा छ होइन. So you better try to visualize the symptoms, होइन. So सम्झिने कुराहरू पनि छन् यसमा. So about the disease cycle, sometimes pod infection can take place, so that's why it can establish themselves in the seed, but generally they are soil borne. Generally they are soil borne. They are favored by wet soil conditions. They are favored by clay soil conditions, otherwise a compact soil, and they are favored by cooler climatic conditions, 20 to 25 degree Celsius. So about the management, so in this case, this photograph is not so clear. So you can see some webbed leaf. Mathematical upper canopy, the adjacent leaves, they are webbed, right? So some kind of rattlesnake pattern. When infections, they are very very severe. Some irregular patches, they may be also seen on the pods. So Rhizoctonia को तपाईले धेरै डिजिज पढिसक्नु भएको छ. Banded leaf and sheath blight of rice, होइन. So when there is seed infection, so they can cause they can blemish the seed color. The seed color is blemished in this. This is a healthy one. This is the blemished seeds as a result of infection of Rhizoctonia. So Rhizoctonia को म्यानेजमेन्ट मैले धेरैचोटि भनिसकेँ, होइन. सोइल सोलराइजेसन, नीम केक इन्टिग्रेसन, अथवा चाहिँ मस्टर्ड केक इन्टिग्रेसन, अथवा क्यास्टर केक इन्टिग्रेसन, बायोकन्ट्रोल एजेन्ट्सका जस्ता कुराहरू, होइन. Of course, seed treatment is important in case of in this case because it can establish itself on the seed. And for foliar spray tebuconazole, it is also triazole. This is found very effective. So this can be used. You when you go with foliar spray of carbendazim. So when there is root rot phase, you should go with soil drenching. So when there is root rot seen, you can go with